So, as I see all you guys know, a little bit about Vistaprint. About myself is that, as what Deborah said there, that's just part of the story. When we look at social media, the biggest thing about it is storytelling. So when we look at my story itself, it's aside from being the social media and public relations manager at Vistaprint, it's being a father, being a sports fan, enjoying beer, enjoying wine and cigars. But then you look over at Vistaprint. Those are all things that I do enjoy. It's all in my 140-character bio that Twitter provides me. But when we look over at what Vistaprint is, everybody here has a certain story about the company. But what the company is we provide marketing materials for small businesses, so specifically the micro business, which is 1 to 10 employees. We allow the people to come there and get a fully branded marketing material set that you probably couldn't do unless you hired a graphic designer. We know that small businesses traditionally have a $500 advertising spend for marketing. You can't hire a graphic designer with that. So a lot of people would go and make things on clip art, print them out themselves, cut the business cards, or do the pop-out ones that come through the printer. It's not too professional. We saw a void in the market, came out in 2000 with our first website, and providing cards since then. Our typical customers are the people you'd see, many of you in the room, as well as these mom and pop shops, the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker, all those people downtown would have the spots on here. Do apologize for not having the presentation with me. I was under the weather the past 2 days, so I forgot my computer on the way out this morning, but you can see it if you go to slideshare.net/Jeff Espo. So now, enough about me, enough about the company. We're going to talk about social media. Now, instead of going towards the networks, what's really important with everything is the story. So when you look back at things, how many of you have read Harry Potter? How many of you have read Huckleberry Finn? How many of you have read Of Mice and Men? I'm sure everybody in here could remember a character for that. And why is that? It's because they had a great story. It's Harry fighting Voldemort. It's Huck Finn helping Jim go down the Mississippi River. Then you look over at Of Mice and Men, it's Lenny and I'm forgetting his name right now, but Lenny and George. The end of the story probably sticks in everybody's head. That's what people remember. So when you head into social media, the question to do is to step back as your organization and ask, what is my story? So what's your company's story? What's your nonprofit story? And more importantly, why should I care? Why should I invest some of my time in hearing that story? Because social media is very cluttered. When you go and look at brands and everything like that, why should each one of you care about it?
Jeff, would you like us? We can
No, it's okay. I can talk from
it up there. That would be easier.
No, it's okay. I can talk from memory with it.
Sure.
It's good because a lot of the animations get lost in SlideShare anyway. So we'll just go from here.
Okay.
So now with your story, once that's important, you can now step back and say, why should I go to social media? I know obviously for nonprofits you sit there and it's a low cost because there's not much money that goes towards it. But you are investing a lot of people capital and building up relationships. So finding that story is what's important. And when you look to see where you go, the biggest thing is to step back and do some research. See where your customers or your actual donors or constituents are. Where are the people congregating? Is it Facebook? Is it Twitter? Is it MySpace? Believe it or not, there's still some communities that gather on there. Find out where that is, because if your fans and people you want to reach are not on those networks, there's no point in doing them. So when you're looking at things, sure, Facebook has over 160 million users in the United States. But if they're not interested in what you have to offer, there's no point being there. So once you do a little bit of research, we did this at Vistaprint. We sat there for 6 months and tried to see where people were. We started out on Twitter and built a community on there, then moved to Facebook and have slowly added other networks, but it's only been towards where the customer is. So we're looking at the bottom line with everything, which is important for all of you as well. So once you find where that community is congregating, the biggest thing to do is see why you're on this network, and why you want to use this platform. Is it Facebook? Is it building an audience? Twitter? Is it just pushing out a message? Once you've got this platform, it's tying it back to your business and finding out where you should be going from there. So when you're looking at the spots, it's everything you're doing should tie back to your website in some way, shape, or form, so somebody can make a donation to you or learn more to you. Instead of giving Mark Zuckerberg or the Biz Stones of the world all the credit for everything and going off their platform, tie it back to you. Share things that are relevant for you in telling that story. And once you're on the platform, figure out what you want to engage with, because people are going to come there, and if they see something that's a pure one-way push marketing, nobody's going to come back. You want to cultivate a community no matter what the platform is. So for example, if you're on, good things to share are your story. What makes people come out to the food bank? Where do these experiences come from? I know we've been out there a few times. You know, I heard some stories back before, is why should somebody come to the shipyard and see artwork? What's going on there? Give it there, and also give your community a voice. Share their stories. If you know somebody's come out, take a quick flip cam, put the video up there, and offer a way to share of it. And, you know, two organizations that I think do this really well, and they let the participants share their story, are the Pan Mass Challenge in Movember. So a friend of mine, Doug Haslam, has been riding in the Pan Mass Challenge now for 5 years. I only know a little bit about the challenge itself, but I know that I'm going to support Doug because he's doing this for a personal cause. He's going into riding from Boston to Provincetown because he's honoring his father-in-law, and other family members and friends who have died of cancer. So it's something that has that personal story and gives the tie-in towards a charity. So you're letting your people tell your story for you, but at the same time coming back and knowing that story. Movember is the same thing. A lot of you have probably seen people with some funny hair on their upper lip in the month of November. I would show my profile, but I look like a child molester, and it does not look pretty. Trust me, going to my son's daycare center and having to explain that this is for charity got old after about the third or fourth week. So I was happy to shave it off. But when we're looking at it that way, it's something to where it's for a cause. Yes, everybody that shares a picture of them with a mustache or a video of them with their mustache on Twitter or Facebook is linking back to a page on Movember's website to where two men's cancer charities are now getting exposure for this cause. And yeah, people look stupid for it, but at the same time it's building that awareness. It's building up that story. Why are we doing this? And I think that's one of the things that should be a key takeaway for anyone getting involved with social, because it's that story that gets people coming back. You know, aside from getting into social, one of the other things that you should look at is measuring it. Because while it's free, you know, being free is a really big misnomer for social media. You know, because right now, yes, my company doesn't pay to use Twitter or Facebook, but I'm spending 40 hours a week on these sites and looking at things. So that's my salary right there. That's all of your salaries as well when you're going to these charities. What is the cost of this and what's the return on it? So it all depends when you're looking at something what you should measure. What's your goal? Is it to build a giant audience? Is that fans and followers? Is it that big push message? Which is great if you want that. You can count fans and followers. It's very easy to do. A more complicated spot is to see what donations are coming in from these sites to track it. You can either use a unique code or use a site like Bitly or TinyURL to kind of use a shortened URL to track the traffic that's coming back to your site and tie that back to how much money is coming in from your activity on Twitter, how much money is coming in from your activity on Facebook, which is a very important thing. You can also use some plugins to help people share, to expand this audience, like a social toaster or a Gag lamp, which allows people to donate their own statuses to you, to give away their status updates to your nonprofit and share things.
Gag-a-lamp?
Gag-a-lamp, it's Gaggleamp.
Do you know about Help Attack?
I do not know about them. It's a similar thing, but
Help Attack.
Help Attack.
They're here in Boston.
okay. But all these sites do is you log into them and authorize your accounts. They fire you an email when the nonprofit wants to fire off a message that you're going to push through to your audience. The Jimmy Fund did this, I think 2 years ago. They were using this very extensively to get word out about a few of their fundraisers out there. And what it did was it pushed a message that was approved by the nonprofit to my audience. I had to do nothing except for click a button, which is simple, which is also something when you're looking at blogs to build up an area and other forms of content is to make things sticky and make them shareable, is make it so I can just hit one button and be easy. Social media is lazy. You know, for all the activism that people say on there, social media is the purest form of slacktivism. The easier it is, the better it is for people to do something. So if you can make it easy to share and spread your messaging, that's how it's going to spread quicker than hoping that people are going to type in a tweet themselves. If you can authorize it in some way, it's going to make it quicker. So I figured looking at this when I talked to Lisa is that questions would be more important than going through a lot of the content of it. I think, you know, we've talked about some good things in the story on there. I think all of your organizations have a great story, but it's getting that message out there. So I think that my time be best served answering questions you guys have. I know we have a few minutes left on here, so I'll open it up to that.
What was the first website for the viral fundraising?
Gag-a-lamp, and there was a social toaster as well. Social toaster, I believe, is being used more by for-profits, so it might have a higher cost of entry into there.
We can't find Gag-a-lamp on the internet. Gaggle.
Gaggle.
to measure?
So if you're using it to come through Bitly, if you go through and set up a Bitly Pro account, which is free, it goes through and it gives you tracking of every URL that you share. So you can see what traffic was sent by source type.
Okay.
Do the same thing through Google as well, but one of the things we've used it for in the past is to track how much an article or blog post has been shared. You can see what the traffic comes in from there to kind of put a value towards it.
So Jeff talked a lot about strategy. Does anybody have questions for him about putting together your social media strategy, thinking through how to connect one A to B on that?
In terms of measurement, what tools are you using?
So we're using a lot of tools. The biggest one we use is to track revenue, because for us that's the most important thing at the end of the day. It's through a homegrown system. We track everything at the URL-based level. So if you were to come in on vistaprint.com/Twitter, we know how much money we made off of that. Vistaprint.com/Facebook, we know how much any of the landing pages or offers we do, we track it through that. We look at conversation share among our competitors, which is also an important thing to do, is to look and see what your competition or other nonprofits locally are doing, to see what you can borrow or steal from them to do to make yourself successful. So we actually use a tool called Lithium Social Media Monitoring. We use, it's a pay service, so it's not cheap.
Is it
Yeah,
in the cloud?
What was that?
It's a web app?
Yep, it's in the cloud. It's a web app that pulls all mentions.
It's one of the best out there.
It pulls every mention for our company as well as our top 25 competitors, and we extract the data and see where we rack up against them in terms of positive and negative sentiment, conversation share, and also another social measure called the SIM score.
Do you think I'm sure you know, some of these folks in the room may not be able to
Yeah,
afford lithium,
so-
which starts at around 1,000 to 1,500.
Yep.
So,
I think some free tools you could use, free
Or
to cheap
lower
tools, lower
cost.
cost tools would be, a good tool to use would be the Viral Heat, which starts at about $9 a month. Or you could actually set up some freer version tools. If you were just to do a the Twitter search of sucks and love next to your organization, you can get a good volume of this or that next to it. I think for us, we're looking at a lot of those things on a product level to see what we do bad and do good. We use tools that are on those. Another thing that we use to manage areas and conversations is CoTweet, which is a tool now owned by ExactTarget. They still have a free version to where it'll track all conversations with certain customers and see what they've talked about in the past. You can schedule tweets. Hootsuite does something very similar, and it has a free version as well that can kind of go through there, and you can line up your tweets, see where things come from in terms of volume and source type. And in those tools, you can also set up reporting to where you're searching the negative connotation with your brand and the positive connotation with your brand.
I want to go back to something you said about landing pages, which is really interesting. So it's something that, a lot of companies do, not so many nonprofits do, in terms of setting up specific landing pages. So you've got your Twitter profile, and instead of sending them to www.mynonprofit.org, you've sent them to something, a page that's specifically for people from Twitter. And you're using it for tracking. And a lot of nonprofits can also use it as a specific welcome page for people from Twitter. Do you also use it that way?
When you go to the landing page, it says it's a deal that welcomes you from Twitter. I think a company locally who does a good job of this, doing what you said, Deborah, is WEEI. They don't send you to facebook.com/WEEI. It's weei.com/Facebook. So they're driving traffic back to their site and then coming from there. Because at the end of the day, you want people coming back to your site. For us, that's how we make money. But for you guys, it's how you get donors, how you get email addresses.
I thought you also had a really good point about why should we build up Mark Zuckerberg's finances here. Or actually, it's the public finances now, since it's a public company. But I think that's a really good point, that there's a lot of conversation in the nonprofit world about platforms to choose from and how much of their own versus really utilizing what the social platforms are out there. And do you have anything to say?
To be honest, if you don't have a website for your business or your nonprofit, you're foolish. Because at the end of the day, look at what happened with Tumblr about, I think it was 8 months ago. Their website went down. And a lot of people lost content that was built on a free platform. Yes, it's free, but at the same time, they lost all that content because nothing was owned by them. If you read Facebook's terms of use pretty clearly too, any piece of information on there can be used if your privacy settings are done to open, so you don't own it there. The biggest thing is to bring people back to your site. So if you have a blog, you have a website, filter out, that's your hub. Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, MySpace, LinkedIn, they're all extensions of your work, but you want to bring them back to home base because that's where you're going to get money into your funnel. That's where you bring people into there. Facebook and everything can just be seen as parts of the fly trap to bring people into there.
So, yeah, we have about 5 more minutes, I think, right?
Yeah.
We can take questions for 5 more minutes, great.
With Facebook and Twitter, how often do you recommend tweeting messages, posting messages during the day?
So I think it's on building a strategy towards that. With Facebook, we use it as a channel to where we build conversation with small businesses. We do it 3 times a day. But all of the messages are related with each other. So we put something in the morning that asks a question. We respond to that question with an afternoon post, and in the afternoon we do with a blog post. So it's all with timing it and actually monitoring what works. The results we've seen is that right now we're reaching about 8 to 10%, on average, 8 to 10% of our audience every time we post on Facebook, which we're proud of because the industry average is 2.5%. So it's all about building up that community, and the reason we've gotten to that is because we've actually been out there and been human with people. We've empathized with questions. We've answered things on there. I think when you're looking to post, it's picking out what campaign you're wanting to do. And say right now it's a fundraiser for a summer cookout or a summer food drive. We have those coming up. Build out posts to have what's going on there. Talk to people who've been there in the past. Use their stories to sell it. Because at the end of the day, what's more meaningful? A person or a push message from a story or a push message